Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi, welcome. This is Ms Chanelle, Language Success Coach, and I am here to talk about preparing for letter writing for the Spanish exam. Let me do a little bit of Spanish. Are you okay? Just a little bit of Spanish, all right? Don't freak out, okay? So, bienvenidos a esta sesión. Vamos a hablar de mm, las mejores maneras de hablar no, de escribir cartas en español para el examen. Bueno, okay. Okay, beautiful. Okay, great, guys. So, what we're going to do is actually talk about letter writing, because this is a question I know many of you don't like it, right? You don't like this question at all. But I'm here to tell you that this is actually a very doable question. It is obviously not, I'm not going to lie and tell you it's super easy, but it's not as scary as you think. A lot of you all think it's super scary. It's not that scary. All right? So, first off, even before we begin, I said I'm going to give you tips about writing this. Please understand that you do still need to know Spanish. This is a Spanish exam. All right? This is a Spanish exam. So, you still need to know grammar and vocabulary. And I'll try to give you some advice for vocabulary, because I know there are some quote unquote bad habits left over from during the pandemic era. All right, so I will dive into that as well. Okay, but for now we're going to start with I just want you to understand that you still have to learn Spanish. I'm not going to tell you this is what you can do without learning Spanish. That would be unrealistic, and I'm not here to help you be unrealistic or to lie to you. So yes, you still have to learn how to write in Spanish, right? But if you're preparing for orals, you're actually covering all of that. That's one of the absolutely wonderful advantages of doing a foreign language subject. You may have different strategy for each different paper, but in terms of content, preparing for orals, learning vocabulary and grammar, you're going to use that same information in paper 2, using that same information and awareness in paper 1. Same thing, right? So yes, you have to learn Spanish, okay? But when we get into the actual, why was it a dialogue here? When we get into the actual paper and we look at a letter, so guys, look at a letter, don't freak out. You could look at any letter in any past paper, they're more or less the same. I do find that the more recent papers, they're trying in their own way to help you do better at the exam. They're trying. All right, but they're more or less the same. The structure is that they give you a one sentence instruction informing you that this is a letter and of the word count 130 to 150, and that you need to write in Spanish and the tenses need to be appropriate. So that's 2 sentences, right? And then you have the actual question underneath. All right, now it's really important that you read these instructions, and that part of instructions are the question, that you read everything, because this is what you're going to look at in order to formulate a better response. All right, this is what you're actually going to look at to formulate a better response. That's guaranteed. That's absolutely guaranteed. All right, so I am looking at June 2023 here, and this is, I'm just going to read it for you, okay? So you have just returned from eating at a new restaurant. Write a letter to your Guatemalan friend Enrique about your experience. Be sure to include, so we've just ended that brief part and we're going to the bulleted point section, right? This is normally in Roman numerals. You should be familiar with that. You see that in any paper, right? Any Spanish paper too with a letter. So now, in this particular paper, June 2023, they want you to include 1, why, when, and with whom you went to the restaurant. 2, details about the restaurant and what you ordered. 3, something interesting that happened and your reaction. 4, plan to return to that restaurant with Enrique when he visits. So we want to go here with Enrique. So these are your overall instructions for the specific question. If I go to Jan 2023, what do we have instead? Your class is involved in a project to help families affected by a recent flood. So, una inundación. Inundación is a flood. Write a letter you sent to your Mexican friend telling him or her about this initiative, right? Iniciativa. Be sure to include, and now we're going to the bullet points here. 1, why your class has undertaken this project. 2, what your class has done to help so far. 3, other contributions you hope to get. And then 4, how he or she can support this worthy cause, right? So those are your overall instructions. Now I'm going to take those instructions and I'm going to break them down for you. When I break them down for you, you will understand that there's a smarter way to prepare for this letter and ensure you hit your marks as per the rubric. Because CXC has regulations for marking this paper and you want to hit those regulations, okay? So the first thing you're going to look at are what I call clues, all right? I call these clues. And then we're going to look at cues, all right? Clues and cues. The clues are something that I came up with, so I'm telling you about those. The cues are literally in the rubric. And my video on rubric, which is long delayed, is going to come out probably this week or next week, okay? But anyway, let's start with clues first. What are the clues? The clues are the overall context of the situation. Right, so sometimes we can use the words situation and context interchangeably, but this is the general gist of whatever situation you're in. So in Jan, you are going to do voluntary work and help families that have suffered a disaster. In the June 2023 paper, you're at a restaurant and you want to tell your friend Enrique from Guatemala, you want to tell him about this experience. So we've centered yourself onto a particular type of situation. One, helping with a disaster. The other, your experience at a restaurant. Right? Now, from there, we can have many other things happen. So this is a very general context, right? What that helps you fit in your mind where you should be in terms of responding to this question. Now, the next part is really what is going to help you place well in the rubric, and that section is the cues. So what are the cues? The cues are those bullet point forms. Those are the cues. So in June, where we're looking at that restaurant experience with Enrique de Guatemala, why, when, with whom you went to the restaurant, details about the restaurant and what you ordered, something interesting that happened and your reaction, plans to return to that restaurant with Enrique when he visits. Your content needs to include those things under that situation. So the clues we spoke about orients you as to the context or the situation, and the cues, C-U-E-S, the cues, which are the bullet points, they tell you what you need to include. What you need to include in the content of your letter, because again, my rubric video is going to come out. This is what they look at to say, all right, on track. When they read your letter and they see you've discussed who you went to the restaurant with, why, when, right? Details about the restaurant, what you ordered, whatever interesting thing happened to you and your reaction. That part's kind of annoying because you have to just randomly get something interesting. And then the plans to return, those are your cues. When we go to the Jan 2023 paper, what are our cues in this context? This context again is helping families who have been affected by a recent flood, una inundación. So your cues here are why you and your class have undertaken the project. Secondly, what your class has done to help so far. 3, other contributions you hope to get, meaning like stuff to give to the people who suffer this disaster. And 4, how he or she can support this worthy cause. You have to write on these. This is where you get your content marks, if I can say it like that, like your content marks. And here's what I love about this. They're telling you what to write. So if you think of, let's say, like doing the English exam, most of you should be doing the English exam as well, right? The vast majority. You don't get told, hey, put this in your writing, not too much, right? You kind of get that in section B. And in fact, I often say section B in the English paper is exactly like this letter. It's exactly like this letter because it's situational, right? The difference is in that one, they don't really help you out a lot. They're trying to help you out a bit, but they don't really. Here, they literally tell you write about these 4 things, right? Now, let me tell you what this means. So this is my, how can I say it? It's a secret I normally give to my learners, right? This is how I tell them prepare for this, all right? And it's good to note because again, this is an exam. You're working under exam conditions and stuff like that, right? So when you're writing your letters and you're getting into the information, you want to give your information in the exact same cue order. So for example, June 2023, when we're at the restaurant and we want to tell Enrique de Guatemala, you're going to start with Q1, and then you're going to go to Q2, and then you're going to go to Q3, and then you're going to go to Q4. Please proceed in that order. Now, there's nothing to say that you should not proceed in that order. However, it's going to be a lot easier for someone to mark, and most of the times when you look at the Q order, it seems to be a logical order. So follow this specific order, right? Secondly, what you want to do is writing it out. Secondly, what you want to do is respond specifically to each cue, right? Don't try to, I want to say fairy tale it, but don't think that you need to pad your response. So for example, Q1 is why, when, and with whom you went to the restaurant. So what's the why? Visité a un restaurante nuevo en la ciudad. Fui al sábado pasado y con mi familia. Bam. And literally you've done Q1. You've literally tackled Q1 right there. Because Q1 and this is very simple. It's straightforward. Now, when you get into Q2, where it's the details of what you ordered and the details of the restaurant, you will naturally write more. Because you're not going to say, es un restaurante china. You can't be that simple. You're going to have to give information. Maybe, is it a large building? Is it a small building? Was the ambience beautiful? Okay, you don't know the word for ambience. But you're describing the restaurant and then you're going to describe the food you order. You could also describe probably the service. You don't have to be very long and drawn out with this, but you are going to have to do this information. Why not? Muy bien. Right. So that's my other thing. Respond directly to the cues, right? And essentially, ta-da! That's your Spanish letter. A lot of students ignore the cues. Okay, a lot of you all, quite honestly, are terrified of doing the foreign language, whether it's Spanish or French or Portuguese. And honestly, it's not going to get better if you keep putting it off. That's for anything in life, right? But when it comes to actually writing letters and you're working at it and you're attempting it, you need to follow the cues. They are a very honest to goodness guide. I've worked with my learners and I've had students who struggle with this, and as they've started to follow the cues and just respond to the cues and focus on that, they have gotten better marks. Okay, they have gotten better marks, right? Now, the last hack that I would give you, it's not really something I think that's part of the syllabus, but it helps you because you are ultimately writing a letter, right? You're probably wondering, hey, how come you haven't spoken about like addressing the letter? Yes, you do need to have the letter format, the letter layout. So you do need to ensure in terms of covering the letter aspect of this. You have the address at the beginning to whom you're writing to, and then you give them the salutation. So in this case, you are writing to Enrique de Guatemala. You say, querido Enrique, because you're writing to Enrique. Jan 2023, you're writing to your Mexican friend. They did not specify if it's a him or her. So in this case, you name your friend. I normally tell students to write to the same one friend all the time, right? So, querida Anna, querido Mario, right? You're just writing to your friend. And then, of course, all the way at the end, you're going to sign off. So these are letters to friends, probably same age or similar in age, for both June as well as Jan 2023. So for these, you're just going to sign off with con cariño, con amor, and very simple, very cordial, no, not cordial, but not so formal closes to your letters. And that's the focus to the letter. Again, a large concern in this is can you write to someone in Spanish and give them information? All right. It just so happens that they've chosen the letter format. They used to do a composition in this too, you know. And I kind of prefer the letter format because it's a lot more direct as it is right now. What you are fearing is not the letter, you are fearing your lack of practice. And you still have time. Start practicing it, start doing it, especially if you can get feedback. If you're interested in feedback, I am actually doing feedback for students. It is at a cost. So if you're interested in that, you can always message me on Facebook or IG and I'll get back to you. But you do another certain number of papers at a reasonable cost and you get actual direct feedback. This is for those of you who don't have feedback or don't have reliable feedback, or those of you who want more feedback, right? Because you're preparing for exams, right? You don't need to be in a class at this point. You need to be writing, right? Bueno. So here's my last okay, I have 2 more hacks, but here is my second to last really good piece of advice that I think helps you with organizing your material and making it easier to read, right? And this is how you paragraph it. So you're writing a letter, it still needs to be in paragraphs, okay? So this is a little tricky because it depends on how the question comes. But what I normally recommend is that you should have like about maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs in your letter. 3 or 4 paragraphs does not mean you are writing 3 to 4 pages. Calm down. It just means 3 to 4 paragraphs, okay? So here's how I look at it. When you start your letter, you must always greet the person you're writing to. Oh, so you do querido Enrique, then ¿qué tal? Espero que todo vaya bien contigo. And that's your standard open for a friend. We don't even need to change that, right? But when you're done with your open greeting to your friend, you need to start Q1. Let me put it this way. You need to let them know why you're writing, and you can hopefully go into Q1. And that can be your first paragraph, right? So I'm talking about arranging your information in a smart way. So for me, if I were looking at the June 2023, I would do my greeting in paragraph 1. I would do my why I'm writing, paragraph 1. And then I'll probably do Q1 in paragraph 1, possibly, right? So that's an option for paragraph 1. Paragraph 1 can have your greeting, why you're writing, and Q1, or you can do your greeting and why you're writing. And then second paragraph can be your Q1, right? But if you do your intro, your greeting, and Q1, if you do your greeting and Q1 in paragraph 1, then if I'm using June 2023, I might do Q2 by itself because of all the details. And then I would do maybe 3 and 4 together, or I might do 2 and 3 together. It really depends. So you're thinking, wow, miss, that's not very helpful. It really depends. What I'm trying to get you to do is organize your work in a way that's easy to read. If I look at Jan 2023, where we have the flood, Q1 is what your class did, why your class undertook this project, what your class has done to help, other contributions you hope to get, how he or she can support this with the code. I might want to do Q1 and 2 together and then 3 and 4 together. Right? Now, depending on how you write, you could slightly change this. But this is an effort to make your work look a lot more professional, organized, and confident. And not just one block paragraph, because that's not how you write letters. You write letters in multiple paragraphs. So I would recommend you do that, right? So that's another thing that I normally teach my learners, right? Now, finally, I'm going to go into vocabulary. And at the beginning, I said there's this bad habit we have from the pandemic era, where they were giving the quote unquote subject topics. Now, subject topics I don't think really helped anybody, right? For English, they were really redundant. For Spanish, they were like an event. What type of event? They'd be like, I don't even have some of these subjects up. I just know for me, they were not that specific. So for example, even if I say going out, like if I'm doing June 2023 and I say it's about going out where? Restaurant, concert, cinema, mall, sporting event. Where are we going out, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that don't let your fear of vocabulary limit you as well for this, right? Again, as I said before, Spanish and French and Portuguese are subjects that when you learn for one paper, you learn all. You learn vocabulary, you learn it for everything. You learn writing, well, primarily for paper 2, but when you learn grammar, you learn it across the board. It's not as if when you learn things, you only learn it for one paper. It's for all the papers. So that's the advantage of when you're doing a foreign language exam for CXC. It really helps you out. So if you've not seen my live where I talk about how to prepare for orals and how to organize vocabulary, I would have that same recommendation. Organize your vocabulary according to the topics that come for the oral exam. What's it? Home and family, school and career, daily routine, sports and recreation, shopping, travel. Oh boy, thank God. There were times when I couldn't remember all 6 of them. So when you follow these topics, and you have to understand some of them overlap. Travel, shopping, they tend to have some very specific terminology and vocabulary. I think directions need to be under travel. But family, and daily routine, and sometimes there's an overlap with those 3, right? So when you learn your vocabulary that way and you start writing and start putting the vocabulary in your head, you have an easier time. You actually have an easier time. All right, so that is it for this video. I hope it makes letter writing less stressful and more realistic for you. Yes, you still need to learn Spanish. If you thought you did not need to learn Spanish, I apologize. This is not the video for you. I really don't know of any way that you can pass the Spanish exam or the French exam or the Portuguese exam without learning the foreign language. I can't help you with that one. But if you're willing to learn, and even if it's not to learn this foreign language in the future, but at very least to get a really good grade on your certificate, please follow these guys. All right, if you have any more questions, you guys can comment below, for sure. And as always, this is given to you with love and success. Take care. This has been Ms Chanelle. You have a great day. Bye bye. Ciao.